Hey guys, welcome back to Heavy Metal Horizons. So guys, usually I like to do fun videos and sort of lighthearted content. Today this video is going to be a little bit more serious. I want to talk a little bit about an accident that happened recently, and it doesn't directly involve my personal flight training, but basically there was an accident involving another student at a different flight school than the one I go to, but at the same airport. And it's really just one of these events that when it happens, it really makes you stop and think about things. So I don't want to go into too many personal details about the person that was involved in this accident. There's an investigation going on, and so a little bit of what I'm talking about is just going to be speculation on my part. And obviously, I'm just a student pilot, so there's a lot of things that I could be getting wrong. But basically, there was an accident recently where a student, again, at a different flight school, but at the same airport that I go to, a student pilot was on his cross-country solo flight. He was flying from the Van Nuys airport up to the Santa Maria airport. Something went wrong. The airplane crashed, and the student pilot was killed. Now, as if that's not bad enough, the airplane crashed into an elementary school up there close to the Santa Maria airport. But because of the lockdown right now, there were no students there. So in a weird way, it's actually incredibly lucky that we're having all this craziness going on, because you can imagine how bad that could have been if there were students there. It's already tragic, but it could have easily been worse. Now, this was not somebody that I knew personally, but I, was looking at the details of the accident, and it seemed like the guy was actually in a pretty similar stage in his flight training as I am. And I actually flew over that airport. I used it as a visual checkpoint on one of my flights that I did recently. Now, I've looked at some other information that had to do with this accident, including the sort of ground track of the airplane. And it looks to me, and again, this is speculation on my part, there is an investigation. We won't know the result of that investigation for quite some time. So again, I'm speculating here. But it looks to me like it was what's called a base to final turn stall. Now, for any pilots that are watching, you guys already know what that means, but essentially, you have the pattern around the airport that you fly on these different, what's called legs, and the base to final, you make this 90-degree turn, and it's basically the last turn that you make before you come in to land. And the issue with it is that it's normally the slowest you're going to be going when you make a sharp turn like that, and so it's a potentially dangerous situation where the airplane is very slow, and it's banking, and that can lead to a situation where you can very easily stall the airplane. And if it stalls and spins, you're at a low altitude because you're coming into land. You don't have enough altitude to recover from the stall and the spin, and the airplane goes straight in. And there's a little security camera clip that I saw of this accident, and it looks like that's exactly what happened. So that base to final turn accident, it's not a common accident, but it is a sort of classic accident, and it's something that my instructor is constantly warning me about. So I actually have a clip here from my flight training, pretty early on in my flight training, where I was getting into a similar situation like that, where I was banking too steeply when I was coming into land at a very low altitude. So I want to go ahead and show you guys that clip, and I'll talk a little bit more about it.
Straight. No, not too much. Go straight.
Okay.
Turn it back in slowly. That's the power. That's the power. Pull back. Don't descend that much. Don't do that steep of a turn. Slowly turn back. You're so close to the ground. You never want to go more than 30 degrees of bank, okay?
Okay.
So you can probably tell from that clip, I'm at a very low altitude. I was just a few hundred feet above ground level and coming into land there at Van Nuys, and I was getting into, a bad situation there where I'm banking too steeply. I was making an S-turn to give the airplane in front of us a little bit more room. And I was really banking too steeply there. And again, the problem is, when you're in an airplane like that, if you stall at a high altitude, even if you spin, right, you have altitude to recover from it. But at a low altitude, you're just a few hundred feet above ground level, there's not enough room to recover. So you're high enough for it to kill you, but not high enough to recover from it. Now, again, that clip was from pretty early on in my flight training, and of course, fortunately, my instructor Mo was there with me to, to teach me about that, and it is something that he has since reminded me about many, many times when we're doing pattern practice. Don't bank too steeply in the turns, especially on that base to final turn. Okay, so if we get back to just the overall concept here, what I'm trying to now work through in my head is what is the right response for as a student, when another student dies in an accident. On one hand, it's terrifying, and this accident in particular, right, it could have been much worse. I mean, imagine if that elementary school had been open and, there were kids playing in the playground out there. Imagine being the pilot and surviving an accident like that, but killing a bunch of people on the ground, and then you'd have to live with that. I mean, that's absolutely terrifying. So there's a really scary aspect of it, but on the other hand, you want to be able to learn from things like this, and if anything, this makes me even more concerned with safety and learning as much as I possibly can about how to be a safe pilot. There's a book I read, and I'll show you guys this, called The Killing Zone by Paul Craig. And this is a book I read way back when I was just getting interested in becoming a pilot, before I even started my training. And it basically talks about the most common accidents that happen in general aviation flying. And it really zeroes in on ways to avoid those things, obviously. And when I have a resource that I can use to mitigate risks, right, and learn, what not to do, and the resource can be a book, or it can be my instructor, or it can be other pilots. One of the things, I really want to mention this, one of the things that has impressed me most about the aviation community and the pilot community is the willingness of pilots to share their mistakes, right? And it's this sort of mentality of, don't do what I did, right? So they make a mistake that could have been really bad, and hopefully they survived, of course, and then they share that mistake with other people, so other pilots and other people can learn from what they did wrong. So with this accident that happens, if there's something I can learn from it, or there's something that I can apply to my own training to make my own training safer, then I feel a lot better about it. When you can reduce the risk by increasing your own skill, then that gives you a level of control over the situation. Now, the things that really terrify me are accidents where arguably there's nothing that you could have done. And there's another book I want to mention, one of my favorite books, Chris Hadfield, An Astronaut's Guide to Life. Chris Hadfield is a retired astronaut, and he was the commander of the International Space Station for a while, and before that he was a test pilot. One of the stories he tells in this book is when he was a test pilot. He was testing an F-18 flying at like 50 feet and had a bird strike, right? And it was just luck of where the bird struck the airplane that he didn't die, right? And it's like, in a situation like that, to me, that's the stuff that's really, really scary, because sometimes there are situations where there's just nothing you could have done. It was just unlucky. So I think at this point, as a student pilot, my goal is to learn as much as I can about safety, about how to be a safe pilot, about how to not get myself into dangerous situations. And then at the same time, if there's a situation that I see where I can tell that I could be in a bad situation, and if I get into that situation, there's nothing I can do about it, I want to just try and stay away from those situations. But at the end of the day, and this is just a personal thing, I know not everybody agrees with this, to me, the idea of just going through your life living in fear of what might happen, that's a really terrible way to live. So yeah, I want to do what I can to reduce risks, but I'm comfortable with some risks, in order to live the life that I want to live. So now, guys, in this video especially, I really want to hear from you guys. What do you think is the right way to respond to an accident like this? I mean, it really hits kind of close to home for me. Obviously, I'm continuing my training. I mean, I'm just as amped up to become a pilot as I have ever been. I'm really enjoying my training. But I really want to know just what you guys think is the right way to respond mentally to something like this. And if you guys, if there are any pilots out there who have any stories like this that they'd like to share in the comment section, I would love to read that stuff. All right? So again, guys, I apologize if you're hoping for a fun, happy video, but this is just kind of a serious topic that's been on my mind lately because of this recent accident. All right, guys, so this is Heavy Metal Horizons, Cars, Airplanes, and Heavy Metal. I'm Max Carlisle. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.